Who are the prospects you need to know in the Arizona Complex League, the Florida Complex League, and the DSL? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On MLB Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in to Locked On MLB Prospects, your home for all things minor league baseball. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, freelance baseball writer and podcaster. Thank you for making this your first listen every single day. We're probably part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And today's episode is made possible by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. The everydayers know that we like to self-scout on this show, and I have a couple blind spots. One is pronunciations of names. Got to get better at that. But the other one is with 120 affiliates in full season ball, I really don't have the chance like I want to look at the complex leagues and the DSL. So I said, let's bring in an expert. So we've got Chris Clegg on the show, purveyor of the Dynasty Dugout.com, just fantastic resource for prospect evaluations. Chris, welcome in. And to start us off, first question, if you were a prospect, would you rather play in the Arizona Complex League or the Florida Complex League?
That's a great question. First, thanks for having me.
Yep.
Expert, I'm not sure on the complex side. It's tough. The complex and DSL is tough because there's little film. We have to do as much digging as we can, and I have to try to find film like anywhere and data where I can. But yeah, I feel like those are where you get the edge. Like you can get the next up and coming guy. But I think I'd probably want to play, if I'm a hitter, probably in Arizona. Yeah, ball just flies out there. So I think there's an added benefit if I'm playing in Arizona as a hitter. And if I'm a pitcher, probably go over to Florida. But as an East Coast guy, like obviously a little Florida bias here. So, but I love Arizona too. Like I've got to the AFL every year. So that's tough. But I'll say the complex if I'm a hitter, Arizona complex.
You completely took it a different direction than I did. You were thinking about performance. I'm like, I would rather be near the beach than in the middle of the desert. That was my thought process behind the whole thing. But let's start. Since we're talking about hitters, let's start with Arizona, because the complex league, it feels like, is pretty good for hitters. And who are some of the guys that you've noticed in Arizona that have kind of stood out so far in rookie ball?
Well, I think it starts with Sebastian Walcott is one. He jumped. Like he was in the DSL and he jumped to the complex. He's a name to know, and I'm surprising you a bit with that name. I'd given you a list of names, but he's one that I forgot because I'm looking at leaderboards and all that stuff, and he had moved up. But Sebastian Walcott is one who a massive frame he's like 6'4", 205, like completely just jacked athlete here, and he just turned 17. And he is already up in the Arizona Complex League. He is putting exit velocities up 109, 110 miles an hour at 17 years old. Like just a freakishly good athlete here with Sebastian Walcott. He's with the Texas Rangers org. Mm-hmm. There's people internally that talk about him as a top 5 prospect already in that org. So he's somebody that just looks like, when you look at him, and there's some film out there on him, he looks like a future like number 1 overall prospect type with just his build, his swing, how he impacts the ball. He's just kind of a well-rounded guy. Like I think Sebastian Walcott is the first dude. Sorry for surprising you with that name. No. I was looking at the list. And I was like, Sebastian Walcott. How did I forget that name in the Arizona Complex when I put it down? But
you're totally good there. And when I watch him, we don't do comps on this show. It's kind of one of the rules that we have because it sets unrealistic expectations. But he reminds me of watching like a young Corey Seeger as far as a shortstop, a little bit bigger, but has the power. Like you said, at 17 is still able to put up these exit velos and has a great slash line. Is that kind of off base as far as people trying to figure out what his game would look like or looks like now?
Yeah, that's probably fair. And I'm with you. I think comps are tough because we see, the Jason Dominguez comps to every Hall of Famer there is. And we were already getting Hall of Fame comps for Ethan Salas, like in spring training. Like, come on, that's extreme. But yeah, Walcott, that bigger frame, he may move off shortstop, but he's athletic enough where I think he could stick. And obviously, there's smaller samples. We've got 3 games of him in the Arizona Complex League, 9 in the DSL. So it's a small sample. There's limited film. I haven't seen him much in the field, but I know the bat is good. And like you said, that's a pretty good bat comp, I'd say, is Seeger from the standpoint of just big power. He's going to make enough contact, hit for average. Maybe not the quickest guy as he matures. Like he's stealing some bases now, and he's showing some decent speed. I think he had a triple in his first complex game. And so he's showing quick speed, but also we don't know. Like there's a lot of variables in the complex that kind of affect that. But yeah, I like that comp for him.
Okay, yeah. So Sebastian Walcott, obviously coming up in first-year player drafts. If you're going to be drafting sometime soon, I've got mine coming up. I actually forgot and tried to grab him on Fantrax, and the commissioner's like, "You got to wait for the draft." So nice. All right, I know a lot of, obviously, as we've talked about, the younger the prospect is, the more likely you see guys at shortstop. And some of the guys that you've pointed out, there's quite a few shortstops that you're looking at as far as Arizona Complex League guys.
Yes, most of them are. A lot of them will move off the position, most likely. You never know, really, with how they mature. And when we're talking about 16 or 17-year-olds, it's like, who knows what their body does? And think about back to when, like, we were 16 years old. We were definitely not playing professional baseball.
No.
But here, yeah. And so there's a lot of changes that happen over that time. But yeah, most of these guys are actually shortstops. And the next one is too. And that's Rafael Ramirez in Cleveland's organization. He's 17 at the complex. And that's something that I look for. It's like, I think that matters a lot. And one of the guys I'm going to mention is a bit older, but Rafael Ramirez is 17. He's playing at the complex. If you look at his surface numbers, they're okay. I mean, he doesn't have a home run in 60 plate appearances. He has one stolen base. He's hitting 233 with a 450 OBP. But there's a lot of good things to like in Rafael Ramirez's profile. He makes a lot of contact. He's almost a little passive. And I think that's what we're seeing with the strikeout rate being at 30%, is that he's very selective with his pitches. So he's getting deeper into counts and is affecting his strikeout rate.
It's the Emmanuel Rodriguez issue that he had earlier this season. It's almost passive to a fault, and you get in a disadvantaged count, and then you have to expand the zone and chase and things like that.
Yeah, those are things you don't necessarily want to see, but for a 17-year-old, like, those things are fixable. And Ramirez is an interesting profile. Like, his underlying data is a little bit better than the overall performance suggests. Like, good StatCast data, good contact skills. I think this is a guy that's really going to blossom, even though, like, you look at the basic stat line for Rafael Ramirez, and you're not going to be wowed by any means. But this is a player that I really like the potential to grow out in his frame. I love the swing from the left side. And this is like a Cleveland guy. Like, Cleveland molds these players. Like, they have the strong hit tools, and they make them in something. I think there's more power here too than some people might expect.
Yeah, and for a 17-year-old, I mean, if he doesn't have any home runs, I'm really not that worried about it because, I mean, he's 17. He's got a lot of physical development left. I'd rather look at how good is he as far as is he aggressively chasing? Does he have good pitch recognition and things like that? So that's a little more important than maybe what his power production is right now at age 17.
Yeah, I agree. Those things you can't teach. Like, it's harder to teach, at least. The eye at the plate, the strike zone recognition, those things can be learned. But when you have that at a young age, it's certainly notable. And, you know, bank on power projection, and guys' bodies change when they're 17. So he can certainly add to his frame there. This next guy's kind of the opposite. Johnny Severino in Milwaukee's organization. He's the opposite in the sense that he's very aggressive, swings at a ton, but he's aggressive early in the counts, and he's jumping on pitches. He's got the power and the speed you want to see. 4 home runs, 5 stolen bases so far. OBP below 300, though. That's certainly not encouraging because a lot of it has to do with a 2% walk rate. That's largely because of just his aggressive nature and how he's jumping early in the counts. He's not seeing a lot of pitches. And in actuality, like, I'm okay with this to an extent. He's 18 years old at the complex. Like, he was pretty solid in the DSL last summer. This is a guy I'm willing to take a chance on because he's cut his K rate. He's making more contact than he did last year. And there's power and there's speed. So Severino certainly pops in the statistical models, he's hitting the ball harder than he did last year. And last year he had already put up pretty decent exit velocity numbers for his age. And he's one that there's some good videos online. The Brewers player development account does put out some good stuff. This guy's got a really long swing, powerful swing, just puts the ball in the air, and just very quick hands at the plate. So Severino, one to watch, one that I'm pretty intrigued by. And I think that, I can live with the inverse of Rafael Ramirez here because he's showing some good things. And ultimately, the contact numbers are still there. It's not like he's making terrible contact. The contact numbers are fine. He's being aggressive early in counts, putting balls in play. And for fantasy purposes, that's pretty good. So if you're looking at a Dynasty League, I'm all about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's I feel like when you're going for, in Dynasty, you're looking for a guy who's at the complex or who's in the DSL. You're ultimately looking at, can they hit for enough power to make an impact in fantasy? Because you can find a hit over power tool just anywhere, but it's can they get enough impact on their swings? So, fantastic. I like Severino. I think he does feel like a third baseman to me, more so than a shortstop as far as his long-term future, but either way, I think he's a promising prospect for the Brewers. He's probably going to be, I'd guess, back half of their top 30 next time we see a bunch of re-rates and things like that. I do want to, while we're in Arizona real quick, a couple questions from the subtexters, guys, to figure out, should we be excited about their hot starts or should we be kind of cautious? Jason Cheerio, hot start. Do we feel good about it? Is it sustainable, or is this a little bit of a small sample size issue?
No, I like Cheerio a good bit. And obviously, there's the pedigree there with the last name Cheerio. So naturally, You're going to get a little bit of a boost in value because of the brother there, Jackson Cheerio, who we know is one of the top prospects in the game. But with Jason Cheerio, you're looking at a really strong contact profile. Mm-hmm. I mean, a ton of zone contact, a ton of overall contact. He doesn't chase at all. And I think it's one of those cases where you kind of look at the frame and you can say, okay, certainly can see some more power coming. He's 6'1", 6'2". He's probably up to a $170 right now. So you could probably see some more power coming in this profile when you're already such a strong field to hit. Good plate skills. He walked at a high clip in the DSL. We kind of take that with a grain of salt because pitchers in the DSL can be pretty bad. Yeah. So we take that with a grain of salt, but he's doing it again. He's taking pitches, doesn't chase at all, and makes a ton of contact. And I'll kind of bank on this profile kind of adding a little bit of power eventually. So, yeah, I'm in on Jason Cheerio, and I think that he could be a really solid asset for sure. Right now, yeah, you look at the stat line, you're like, where's the counting stats from a power standpoint? Speed, yeah, he's stealing some bases, but you want to see a little more power, but I think that could come. This is a frame that I do really like, a swing that I really like, and the plate skills are there.
All right, we're hopping on a plane to Florida, going to the Florida Complex League. We'll do that next right here on Locked On MLB Prospects. Back to our conversation with Chris in just a second, but first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting Major League Baseball on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets, up to $200. That's right, just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting on everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to get the first home run in that game. And all of this on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, Rookie of the Year, 4-man race in the American League. Josh Young plus 170, Matsutaka Yoshida plus 250, Gunnar Henderson plus 300, Hunter Brown plus 850. National League Rookie of the Year, 2-man race. Corbin Carroll minus 550, Ellie De La Cruz plus 700. So, sign up today. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. Welcome back to Locked On MLB Prospects, your home for all things minor league baseball, joined by Chris Clegg, purveyor of the DynastyDugout.com, absolute best dynasty baseball reference out there. I cannot endorse it enough. It's dramatically changed what I've been doing in fantasy for the better. So go check it out, thedynastydugout.com. All right, so we've talked a little Arizona Complex League. Looking at the Florida Complex League, who are some of the guys that stand out to you as far as you've been impressed with what they've been able to do so far?
Luis Baez with the Astros is the first name, and he's been absolutely obliterating baseballs. 6 home runs so far in 48 plate appearances. And this is a guy that performed last year in the DSL too. So when you tack on a really strong performance from the DSL, you come over stateside and you just perform. Like we're talking about near 1,300 OPS. He's hitting 333. He's walking as much as he strikes out, and that's a good thing. We're looking at 16.7% walk and strikeout rate. So just absolutely incredible stuff here with Luis Baez. And it's no fluke either. Like you look at, he's 19. So he's a little bit older than I want to see at the complex, but you probably expect him to get a bump pretty soon up to single A because he's just been absolutely killing it. But we're talking last year, incredible StatCast data is an 18-year-old in the DSL. He averaged 92 miles an hour on average exit velocity last year. His ninth percentile was 103.5, which was MLB average last year. And he did it with an 81% zone contact. So
that's nuts.
It's a really good blend. He's very selective on his pitches. He's not chasing a ton, but he's hyper aggressive in the zone. He swung at 82% of pitches in the zone last year, and it's similar this year. So he knows what pitches he wants, and he's hitting them hard. I mean, 53% hard hit rate, like things that you just want to see to back up this performance. So Luis Baez in the Astro system, he's already just physically just a specimen. 6'1", 205, so big dude, jacked, hits the ball incredibly hard, makes good contact. He's fallen up a lot of boards. I think Baseball America put him 5th in the Astro system in a re-rank. So it was kind of eye-popping. Like, it's like, whoa, like, okay, so they really buy into this, and I'm really buying into it as well. We'll see what he can do when he bumps up to full season ball, which I'm fairly confident he will soon. But just based on the performance over a 2-year sample now, like I'm pretty in on Luis Baez.
Yeah, and with the plus arm, it's definitely something where I could see him playing right field more so than left. Obviously, a little bit more valuable defensively there. Not going to play center field, and we know that. But it's better to have the arm to play right than just be confined to a left field. So I like Baez a lot. Probably going to be a very hot commodity in your drafts and things like that. So if you have the option to go out and get him, go ahead and get him. All right. So who else has kind of stood out as, this guy is performing really well in a small sample size? Granted, maybe the age isn't quite there, but
Yordany De Los Santos is the next in the Pirates org. He is somebody who just screams a lot of projection to me. Good feel to hit. He's very quick, a really good athlete, which I think is something that's underrated. Like when we look at prospects, like just an incredible athlete here. He only has 1 home run, hit 1 home run last year in the DSL as well. So we're looking at almost 300 plate appearances in his pro career, just 2 total home runs, but a lot of extra base hits. He had 15 doubles and a triple last year in the DSL, already 5 doubles in 56 at-bats this year in the complex, but he makes a ton of contact. His exit velocities have improved this year. Doesn't chase that often. So Yordany De Los Santos with the Pirates just looks to me like he's somebody that will continue to develop and pop off. He certainly screams future power projection, and with the already good feel to hit, like this is a profile with a good athlete that runs well. I'm buying into. So De Los Santos, he's 18 years old. He's a young 18, just turned 18 in February. So he'll be 18 the entire season. And he's another one that I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a bump to full season ball at some point this summer, because his performance has been really good. I know the Pirates really like this guy. They value him pretty highly. A lot of other big publications too are really getting in on him. So I wouldn't be surprised if he makes the jump and continues to fly up lists. Yordany De Los Santos, the Pirates.
I do have a few questions from some of the subtexters about some rough starts in Florida. Jonathan Mejia, not fantastic open to his rookie ball, and then Yasser Mercedes. What are your thoughts on those two guys and kind of what they've done? Is this exposing flaws in who they actually are? Is this a small sample size thing or just like an adjustment period, do you think?
Well, Mejia's tough. Like, I really liked Mejia coming into this season. He did a lot of good things last year. He had really good data last year in the DSL. So I'm like, okay, like this Jonathan Mejia is a guy that I think could really pop. And the profile looked good overall from a contact standpoint. Didn't chase a lot. It's like, okay, like I feel pretty good about Jonathan Mejia, but then he's just kind of fallen off the cliff a good bit. He's not hitting the ball hard at all. He was kind of billed as a potential plus hitter last year, and we haven't seen that. It was an interesting move that the Cardinals actually already sent him up to single A. Like, he struggled. It was a rare case where you struggle in the complex, but he got sent up not long ago. He's played 6 games in single A now. It's weird. I'm willing to give him a little bit more of a pass because I do think there's better contact skills than we've seen. He's just turned 18 in mid-April, so he's 18 years old in 2 months. So really young. That's a really young player in single A now. The numbers don't look good at all, but I think you have to give him a little bit more time. It's a pretty aggressive move for an 18-year-old coming stateside at the complex for a short period of time and then gets to bump to single A. Like, I like Mejia. I'm down on him a bit from where I was last year because some underlying stuff just isn't there that it was last year. But again, let's talk about it in a small sample that it is, 14 games, and he's a young 18. So,
and there is the thing that we sometimes forget, and I think you had a tweet about this on Wednesday night in relation to a AAA prospect, but we do sometimes forget that, like, these are human beings too, and he's in a situation where he's a young man who's in essence moved to another country, and so sometimes stuff happens, and we just need to have a little grace and understanding that there's a transition here. They have to kind of figure out what's happening and get comfortable in their surroundings before they can really produce. I also do think sometimes when you move a guy from rookie to single A, it's a scenario where maybe it's because we want to get him around a different caliber of pitching, just kind of getting him a better opportunity to see people with more control or see people with a little better idea of what they're trying to execute as far as a pitching plan and actually hitting their spots and things like that. So that kind of makes sense. In just a second, we're going to get into the DSL because there's a lot of things to like, and not many of them are pitchers. We'll do that next, right here on Locked On MLB Prospects. Welcome back to Locked On MLB Prospects, your home for all things minor league baseball, here with Chris Clegg from the Dynasty Dugout, talking all things complex league, DSL, and with a fantasy slant to it. So if you are a Dynasty baseball player, this is absolutely the resource for you. Go check out what Chris is doing at thedynastydugout.com. Follow him on Twitter at RotoClegg. So in the DSL, who's caught your eye early this year as far as production that kind of outsizes what everybody else is doing?
Really, to me, there's kind of 3 guys that project to be like head and shoulders above the rest. And this may not be the most popular things. There are other guys performing well, but when I look at 3 guys in Wilbon Francisca, Luis Guanipa, and Rainer Arias, those 3 names really stand out. And I'll start with Wilbon Francisca.
Yeah.
He just turned 17 in May. So literally just celebrated his birthday. He's in Cleveland's org. This is a guy that was billed as a really strong player coming into the signing period in January. But Cleveland does an interesting thing where they don't give out massive bonuses to one particular player. Cleveland spreads out bonuses among 20 to 30 players in their international signing class. So ultimately, like, you don't see the big $5 million signings in Cleveland's org. But Francisca was the top player in their class, like from a money standpoint. Francisca is just absolutely raking. Switch hitter. He's listed at 5'8", 148 on FanGraphs, but he's much bigger than that. There's a picture of him with Jose Ramirez a couple months ago, and he's significantly bigger than Jose Ramirez. Maybe not like more like jacked, but he's taller. He's a couple inches bigger than Jose Ramirez, and he's filled out certainly a bit. So what he's done has been unreal for a 17-year-old. I mean, 381, 466, 698 slash so far.
It's a
3
college
home runs.
slash line or a high school slash line. It's ridiculous.
Yes. And he's a junior in high school age, and he's doing this in professional ball. So something to think about there. And 3 home runs. He scored 20 times in 14 games. He's driven in 14, stolen 4 bags. 3 home runs I mentioned, but he has 3 doubles and 4 triples. He struck out 12 times. He's walked 8. So good plate skills there. Everything about Francisca kind of just jumps off the page at you. There's a good bit out there on him if you want to go watch him. Guardians or Cleveland Guard Pro on Twitter, Guardians Perspective. They have a lot of good video that they've gotten from sources in the DSL that they're putting out. And you can see a swing from both sides of the plate. There's a lot of good stuff here to like with Wilbon Francisca, a 17-year-old. Again, Cleveland just works wonders with this kind of hitter. He's it. Like, he is already pushing like a dynasty top 100 type guy for me because you can kind of see it with this guy. So Francisca, all in on here.
And then, as we are both Braves fans, Luis Guanipa has to be exciting as far as seeing the Braves have a guy that is performing well and is looks like he could be another impact player down the road, although obviously a lot of work to do to get him stateside and get him to contributing at a major league level.
100%. And, the Braves obviously had their penalties where they weren't able to sign in the international market, and then they had such a limited amount that they could sign. So they've kind of, it's too early to write out some of the guys in previous classes, but Guanipa, I think, is head and shoulders above the rest of what we've seen. So Luis Guanipa is out here killing it in the DSL as a 17-year-old, 3 home runs so far, 10 stolen bases, hitting 333. And that's really up. Like, he honestly struggled a bit early on. And so he's really popping off as of recent and just trending upwards a ton. He's got 6 doubles. He's 5'11", 188. It's a kind of an interesting build. I'd guess that he's probably added an inch to his frame, and somebody that can project to grow. He's got really quick bat, just shoots the ball in the gaps. And I think this is somebody that we can expect more home runs to come from as he grows and matures. Probably spends all summer in the DSL, I'd guess. So I wouldn't expect them to jump him to the complex. I would guess that the Braves are like, okay, just spend the summer here. We'll get you stateside in the spring work, and then you play in the complex next year. But this is somebody that Braves fans should be really excited about. The contact skills are trending upward. There's really good power speed blend and a really good athlete here for Luis Guanipa for the Braves. And dynasty owners, too, should really know about Guanipa.
And then the third guy you mentioned kind of quickly, Rainer Arias of the Giants, another outfielder. And it feels like it's been a lot of the outfielders who have been performing in the DSL, but can you briefly kind of tell us about his also ridiculous video game slash line?
Yep. 418, 529, 818 slug. So, yeah, that's not his OPS. That was his slug, 818. So he's been smoking it. A lot of good video out there, too, for him on Giants Perspective. It's a great account, too, much like Cleveland's account. They put out a lot of good video of him. This guy's frame is much better, actually, than Wilbon and Guanipa. He's already 6'2", 190, and he's 17. So like 17 in 2 months. So you could project some more on this frame too. He's got a really, really quick bat, just rips through the zone at impressive speeds. Like, I don't have any bat speed data on this guy, but you just watch him and you're like, okay, he's hitting balls in the outer half out of the park. Like, there's a couple videos of him on Twitter where you can see like, this is like outer third. He's putting it out of the park. And then the next at bat, like he's getting one like on the inner half, and he just explodes and turns through it. So Rainer Arias, watch that name. I think that he could be in that same conversation as Francisca and Guanipa for dynasty purposes.
Yeah, and I mean, 12 extra base hits in 14 games is just absolutely nuts. Okay, so if folks, obviously we're confined here to 30 minutes on this show, but if folks want like as much information as they can possibly take, what's the best way to follow you and get all of your information and have you as a resource in everything you do for Dynasty Baseball?
Sure. My Twitter at Clegg. If you're watching the video, you see the handle down there, CLEGG. Most everything's posted there. My Substack is where all my work is, thedynastydugout.com. And you can find that link at the top in my bio, at the top of my Twitter, etc. We have an awesome Discord. I would say that's probably one of the best aspects of being a member of the Dynasty Dugouts. We have a ton of sharp minds in there. People are throwing prospect names out left and right. They're, hey, check this guy out. And you're like, okay, like, let me see. And then it's like, oh, these people saw something. And so a lot of sharp minds in there. Lindsay's in there as well. We have a ton of good conversation all the time. It's pretty much just baseball chat 24/7. I have rankings on the website for Dynasty prospects, you name it. Recently just debuted a new Dynasty trade calculator, which is pretty cool. So I built a 3-year Dynasty projection system, and that projects out like 3 years worth of data, gives them a number, and then it kind of spits out like a value of like you put in the names and it tells you what it thinks of the trade. So I know we're confined to a couple minutes here or a short time, but I just want to get that in. I appreciate it. It was a great time talking with you, and glad we could meet via face-to-face, at least on video. And you're a good dude. I appreciate all you do for the community.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. This has been very informative. Not going to be the last time that we do something like this. Again, can't stress enough how useful the Dynasty Dugout is. Links in the episode description, links in the show notes, so go check that out. You can follow me on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. Follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Farm. And this weekend coming up, enjoy the games. And remember, it's always a great time to pay a minor leaguer.